thumbs up if you can hear me well. And I want to encourage everybody to speak in the chats, ask questions, make comments, because today we're talking about how to be your authentic self, how to just be the real you. And it sounds easy, right? Just be yourself, just do what you want, do what you love, say what you mean. But I have found in my 18 years of practice that this is actually a very difficult thing for people to do. The reason I feel it's so difficult is because not only does society not necessarily reward us, because society sets certain standards and certain social mores that we grow up being conditioned to follow. So that makes one part of being authentic self difficult. But the other layer that I think is super challenging is family, because we're born into our families, albeit all families have their own flavor and their own way of functioning and their own generational carryovers and their own ideas about right and wrong. But we grow up understanding ourselves in relation to others, right? We understand who we are by recognizing that there are other people around us with different ideas about life, about how to be, alive, how to conduct yourself. Come here, Lucky. And I want to talk about this today because I think it's a journey and it sounds simple. Just be yourself. Sounds so simple. But actually, I would say this is one of the reasons people come to therapy because they want to be their true selves. They're desperate to be their true selves, but they feel that if they are truly authentic to who and what they really are, that there will be pushback or judgment from family members, society, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, we could take this issue all the way into every cultural group, everything, and I'm not here to do that today. Today, I wanna talk about being authentic and give you some ideas about how to get in touch with your true authentic self. And then I also want to talk about alignment because authenticity, when we're talking about be authentic, be you, say what you mean, be who you are, act the way you want to act, make the choices you want to make that make you happy, that fill yourself. Most of us are raised to please others. And again, it's not good or bad. It's just kind of the way things have always been. So when people come into therapy and they're anxious, depressed, upset, whatever, come here, Lucky. Say hi to my senior statesman. This is Lucky. He's 16 and a half, aren't you, buddy? And so when we want to step out and be our true selves, which we can define what that means too, we often hesitate because we've been, raised to be conditioned to make other people happy, to go along with society, to please other people, and I mean, this has been in the fabric of society probably since the beginning of time, really. So now it's 2026 and things have changed and people are changing and the world is changing very quickly. And I think we're all getting a little more personal freedom to be who we are. We still have a long way to go, but I thought that we could really start talking about that today. And I'm going to move this camera just for a second because I have 3 dogs, and one of them wants to attack the throw pillows here, and we're not gonna have that today. So, let me move these things out of the way. Roxy, you always have to perform when I'm in the middle of a show, middle of a podcast. This is my authentic self with 3 dogs. Okay, so we're talking about authenticity. I'm going to talk about how we do this. And then I want to talk about alignment. And alignment is what it sounds like being in line with ourselves. And being in alignment has a lot to do with the decisions we make. What choices do we make in life? What things do we choose in order to be in alignment with our authentic self? So think of authenticity. Oh God, Roxy, stop. Authenticity is who we are, how we choose to be in the world. And then alignment is about decisions. How do we make decisions about, who we are, that are in line with who we are, so that we can live a life that is remarkably authentic. Like when your dogs drive you crazy when you go on a live because they want your attention. And here we go. Right, Roxy? Come on back over here. Say hi to everybody. So, how do we be our authentic selves? Let's think about this. So, in energy healing, I'm an energy healer and a therapist. So, in energy healing, we look at the individual through energy centers, through chakras, right? And this isn't important to know. If you know it, great. If you don't, chakras. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, and then we have some in the feet. So these are energy centers. And each energy center that we have is connected to a particular part of the body. So this is our spirituality, this is our perception, and our ability to see things beyond the surface. This is our throat chakra, which is our communication center, our heart space, our solar plexus, which is doing our action chakra, and then we have our sacral, which is like the womb chakra for women especially, and then we have the root chakra at the base of the spine, and the base of the spine is our security and our home, our roots, our family, all of those things that make us feel safe and secure. So if we're looking at things energetically and we look at the chakras, we want all the chakras to be open and in alignment. But most of the time, when people come to therapy or just people living, we have various things that are blocked or clogged because this is, of course, what's happening. All right, Roxy, you're ruining. No, no. Okay. Yes, welcome to my life. This is my authentic life. This is really what happens. It's not all staged and perfect. I'm trying to talk about chakras and you have to start acting up. Okay, let's begin again. So we have all these chakras and we want to be in alignment. And the only way we can have our chakras really open and clear is if we are into our authenticity, our true self. So if our throat chakra is one that's commonly blocked. This is our communication center and it's speaking truth. So on a typical day, think about how often do you actually speak the truth? Whether you work in an office, you're in a family, technically, most of the time we don't. We smile and we say, okay, or we hold it in and we think it in our heads, but we don't speak it. And we all do this. We all do this. And this is energetically thought to block the throat chakra. And in psychologically, it's repressing, holding in our true feelings, how we really feel and what we really want to say, speaking our truth. So, whether you look at it from a psychological standpoint, a medical standpoint, an energetic standpoint, it's all the same. Most of us don't speak our truth. In fact, people who are very direct and blunt and honest are sometimes like, whoa, that person's really, we might say, whoa, that person's really direct. Oh my God, right? Because we're not used to it. We're used to, holding things in and being polite and or not wanting to rock the boat, not wanting to have conflict. So many of us, and I see this in my own life, and I see this in my families, and my clients is people don't speak the truth because they're afraid if they speak the truth that they will be rejected or they might upset someone or they might rock the boat. And we don't want to do that because we're afraid if we do that, we will lose connection with other people or we'll be rejected or we'll be shamed or we'll be disagreed with, right? I could go on and on and on. So when you're in a society, and I think this is world culture, this is not specific to the United States. I think when you're in a world culture that basically tells you don't say the wrong thing, don't be too honest because you might hurt someone's feelings or you might displease this group of people or that group of people. We tend to live with a mask on without even realizing it. And so, something that I've been really working on lately is how do I live without the mask? How's that possible? And whatever I learn, I can better teach my clients. I've always been a very um, people pleasing person. I've always been, someone who really cares about other people and didn't want to hurt people's feelings and will, suck in a lot of stuff, keep it inside, and then maybe, blow up one day, because I can't hold it in anymore. And I think that's more common than we think. I think that's what most people do. Very few people have the skills and the ability to be firm and frank without being worried about hurting someone's feelings. And that's part of developing confidence. That's part of developing your sense of self. And that's part of understanding that the only way I, as an individual, am ever going to feel freedom in this body and in this life is to be just truly who I am, meaning say what you want with, of course, compassion and reality. Speak your mind, be honest about how you feel, and don't um pretend to be happy about something when you're not. When we don't communicate and we don't speak our truth, this is what causes all relationship problems. Family, romantic, parent child, work relation, you name it, right? And then you hope that when you speak your truth, you can be speaking with other people who are reasonable and you can have a, decent conversation with them. We all know that it doesn't always work like that. So we feel that being our authentic self, speaking our truth is very risky because we don't know how it's going to be received on the other side. We really don't. Sometimes we may be comfortable enough in a relationship, someone we trust, we love, we know them very well. We know, like, okay, we can talk, we can have conversations about difficult things, and we can move past it. But you can't count on that in every relationship all the time. So, speaking our truth, being our authentic self, going after our dreams, doing what we really want to do takes a certain amount of chutzpah, I would say, meaning moxie, meaning a little bit of drive, a little ambition to say, you know what? I have to be true to myself because when I'm true to myself, within, of course, respect and manners and whatnot, when I am true to myself, then I can make decisions that are in alignment with me. And by choosing to be authentic, my authentic self, then I'm choosing to be in alignment because when I am my true self, I can only make decisions that are true and in alignment with me. So they're not mutually exclusive. Authenticity is who we are, and when we're talking about alignment, it's the decisions that we make. So when these two things are in sync, our life goes a lot more smoothly. But how do we get there? That's the challenge. How do we actually get to a place where we can speak our truth? We can only make decisions that are in alignment with us, with ourselves, and how do we deal with when we are authentic and we are our true selves? How do we deal with the pushback that we might get from society, our families, etc.? So I think we have to start small. I think we learn new things by testing the waters and starting small, right? You can't just all of a sudden just say, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be totally authentic. I mean, I suppose you could, but we have to start small and we have to kind of examine the different areas of our life, right? So we might want to look at relationships is a really important one. That includes the relationship with self. We might look at our career and, are we doing something that we really love? Or are we doing something because it's practical, because it's a good salary, but we're miserable? Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we're doing something we really, really love, but it's not paying the bills, right? It could go either way. So we want to look at our health, right? Are we taking care of ourselves. You don't have to be a marathon runner or something, but like, are we eating healthy? Are we paying attention to our health? Does that matter? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you're your authentic self. And I've known people like this say, screw it. I don't care about my health. I want to eat everything I want and I want to do everything I want to do. And then I'm going to die and that's it. And you know what? That's fine. That's a person's individual choice, right? We may not like it because we want this person to be healthy, but each individual person has a right to be who they truly are. I really believe firmly in this. So we're looking at these different areas of our lives, our careers, our relationships with, spouses, children, etc., our career, our health, finances. These are always the big chapters of life, the big sections that we look at: work, life, love. Are we doing our passion, what we love, what really turns us on? Or are we saying, you know what, I'm not going to do my passion because I'm afraid I can't make it work for me, or I don't know what my wife would say, or I don't know what my husband would say, or I don't know what my kids would think. That's usually what gets in the way of following our passion, doing what we love. And here's number three. This is Corsi. Okay. Now I've got all three of them on the couch with me. So this is a good example. People say to me like, "Oh my God, you have three dogs. How do you manage it?" And to me, it's just like, I don't know. I've had three dogs for 5 years, so I don't really think about it. It's just normal to me. If you have one dog, you can have two. If you have two, you can have three. You let them out, you take them on walks. To me, it's just is what it is. But some people may look at that and think, well, I would never do that. And that's okay, right? Because everyone's allowed to be who they are. And when we pretend to be somebody that we're not to make another person happy, and I see a lot of this in romantic relationships, resentment builds. And eventually we start resenting and getting angry at that person when they didn't even do anything. We're really angry at ourselves for going along with and pretending that we're okay with something that we're really not. And this happens so much in marriages. I used to do a ton of couples counseling, a ton, for about 10 years. And when it comes to couples, this is a major issue because in a marriage, you have two separate individual people with two different desires, even though they may be compatible, they may share a home, a bank account, a bed, but they have different ways of seeing the world or different desires. And couples tend to pull each other back a lot because they're afraid of losing the other one. So we'll say, don't do that or don't do this, or just go ahead and do it and I'll ignore my feelings about it. And resentment happens. So communication and being authentic is critical. It's critical. So let's talk about some practical steps about how we can actually start living our authentic lives and living in alignment so that our decisions that we make, the choices that we make, line up with who it is that we are. Okay. So believe it or not, you have an opportunity in literally every second of the day to be authentic or not. For example, okay, we can start with little small things. Okay, this is how I started doing it. I was the kind of person that if you asked me to do something, I would never say no. If you needed help with something, I would do it. Um, if you wanted me to go somewhere, if you invited me to somewhere, I'd probably go. And to do those things, to make those things happen, I would have to turn the world upside down. You know, I'd have to, rush through work, leave. Like I can think of this one example where, one of my uh exes, my ex-fiance, we were together for a while and he loved to go out every night and he liked to go out immediately. As soon as work was over, out the door. God love him, right? And so he would come to my office and wait because I was always done later than him. And I would feel so rushed because I didn't have time to decompress after my day of seeing clients. And he would be like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I would hurry up and rush my dogs and rush my client because I wanted to please him. It was a small, innocent little thing. But what happened over time is I got really drained because I wasn't taking the time that I needed to close out the day because I wanted to make him happy so that we could hurry up and go out the way he wanted to. He was a high energy kind of guy. And so that was something that eventually was wearing me down because I wasn't being honest. And of course, when I said to him, like, look, I need like 20 to 30 minutes after my last client before we go somewhere. Of course, he understood it, right? It wasn't a big deal. But the idea is that we tend to put our needs, especially if you're a people pleaser like I am and a caretaker, we tend to put our needs below everyone else's, and we may not even realize we're doing it. And you have to start by looking at your life and looking at your relationships. And you could even, I always tell people, journal about it. Take a piece of paper and write down, okay, moving toward authenticity. Let's write down the top 5 significant relationships in your life. Who are they with? Is it your family, your spouse, your parents, whatever? Write them down. And then start kind of inventorying, when I am looking at my relationship with my mother, am I my true self? Or do I do things out of obligation? Do I do things because I feel like I have to because I'm the daughter, I'm the son, whatever? Um, Look at your spouse. Am I living a relationship where my needs are really getting met in this relationship as well as his? Because you can have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Or am I always acquiescing to what he wants or what she wants? Because I want them to be happy and I want to avoid discord. So if I say, no, I don't want to go out to dinner every night, right? Or I don't want to whatever, do this, and they do, then you have to kind of upset them maybe, and you have to work out a compromise. And people will avoid doing this like the plague. But the more you avoid it, the more the resentment builds in all of your relationships, and the less authentic you're being to yourself, the more your energy gets drained and kind of turned off. And you start moving out of alignment into a way of living that is going to be quite unsatisfactory. So if we start inventorying our relationships with, our most significant relationships, that's where we can start to notice. And I think the step one is noticing. You know what? After listening to Elizabeth, I noticed that whenever I'm invited to meet a friend for lunch, I always say yes. Even when I really don't want to go. Little things like that. So I had to go through the journey of, really saying, no, I'm so sorry. I would love to see you, but I'm just I tell people the truth. I'm just too tired. And you know what? And when you say it, people get it. It's not as bad as you think if you're really authentic, just honest. Like, hey, I work every day, whatever. I'm tired. I don't want to go. Right. Or I really, really want to go somewhere and my partner doesn't want to go with me or my kids don't want to go with me. Can I still go without them? Because it's what I truly want. And when we start to be able to do these things, identify where we're not being authentic, which are usually small little things that build up and build up, we can start making little different decisions that are more in this alignment with our true self. And by repeating this day after day after day, we start to really get into alignment. We start really making good choices that are in our best interest and we start feeling a lot freer. We have a lot more space in our lives. We feel a lot more freedom. And I believe underneath our human spirit is we're all searching to feel free, emotionally free, physically free, everything that we do underneath it all, we're looking for love and freedom, right? And when we're making choices that go against what we truly want, even when it's so small, repeatedly, out of alignment, inauthentic to ourselves, the more we speak up and speak our truth, the more we become in alignment, right? So when I think about being in alignment, we can also authenticity, alignment, when we look at those things, we can also say, Am I doing what I want with my life? Am I maximizing my joy by making choices to do things that I really love? Okay, so I can give you more examples. So I love going live, always have been a communicator, enjoy the live energy, enjoy creating content, something fun I've always enjoyed to do, but I never really, I always stuck to being just my therapy stuff, right? Just talking about therapy and this and that. And I got bored with it because there's so many other things I'm interested in. And so I was always looking, is there a way that I can tie everything I love into one thing? So I just started doing it, and my numbers are going through the roof on social media because I'm just doing what I love. I'm not, I don't care. Like if you don't want to watch me dance around with my dogs, don't. Look at somebody else, but I genuinely enjoy it. I genuinely love dancing. I genuinely love my dogs. I genuinely love talking to people. So I'm just started doing it more. And everything just seems to be lining up better because I'm feeling just more joyful about what I'm doing. Where before I was always doing like more serious therapy clips because I believe that, okay, I'm a therapist. People want to hear therapeutic things from me, but I must not show the other sides of me, the dancer, the fun loving woman, kind of free spirit. Oh my God. But then I realized, like, actually, when I can just step into all aspects of who I am and bring them together, people seem to like it a lot more. Why? Because I'm being real. Instead of sitting here and speaking from authority about therapy, which, I can do, um, I'm just being more real. And I think I always was able to do that in my work online, but now I'm really stepping into it because I'm really just me, right? And when we start doing that, everything else becomes easier too. Speaking your truth, which I think is one of the hardest things to do, and speaking about your feelings, like how you really feel, is something that is probably the hardest thing, and I want to say a little bit about that. So, when we're thinking about our closest relationships, because what I'm already laying out for you, practically speaking, these are things that we can do on our own, right? We can make a list, we can write our most significant relationships, we can start looking at them, we can start thinking about them. But when I'm talking about the relationship to self and our true feelings and emotions towards other people that are very important to us, that's the next level, right? That's usually where people need to come and see me individually because it's hard work and it's deep, and sometimes you need a professional to help you, kind of like to help you be a mirror for yourself and ask the right questions and kind of guide you, which is what I do in my therapeutic work. So let's talk about the significant relationships and think about your marriage or your significant relationship or your best friend or whatever's like the closest relationship for you. When your feelings are hurt or when you're feeling brushed aside or unimportant or forgotten about, unappreciated, do you speak up about that? And the true answer for that, in my view, from what I've seen, is that no, most people don't. They keep it in and they keep it in and they keep it in, and then it comes through their pores. That resentment and that hurt comes through the pores of that relationship, and it slowly eats away at the connection. And I think this is why most people get divorced. They cannot have a conversation. And some couples can come out and come to therapy and fix that. And some couples are too avoidant. They just won't. Some couples will live like that for their whole life. It's very sad. So I want this to be an opportunity for you to look at your relationship and say, am I really honest about what I need, about what I want, about who I am? Am I able to do that? And if the answer is no, you may want to give me a call because you can wind up living inside a marriage or a relationship that is really miserable and cold and avoidant because no one's really speaking the truth. Because there is a belief that if we speak our truth and we are authentic, we may rock the boat. Or we may have to face that we don't maybe want to be with someone anymore, or that we're not getting what we need out of a relationship, right? And a lot of people run from that. I'm going to stay because of this, I'm going to stay because of that. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand that people do that. That being said, are you speaking up and getting your needs met in your significant relationships? And most of us will do not have the skills or the courage, not our fault, to speak up because we learned from our families or in childhood that if we speak up, our needs will not be met, or will be left, or will be yelled at, or will be abandoned. And these are the family patterns we often repeat in our marriages, our closest relationships. And so these are, if there was ever a place to become true and authentic to yourself, it should be in your relationships. And a person that loves you, really loves you, would never want you to perform and be someone you're not. So you can't know until you try to approach the relationship. You wouldn't know, right? So you have to try to step out there and go for it and say, let's have a talk. Right now, honesty without compassion is brutality. So I'm not suggesting that you just let her rip, right? We have to be considerate, but we also have to be truthful. And we can find that sweet spot when we really talk about it and think about it, right? And then when we're speaking up and we're getting our needs met in the relationship, hopefully, again, all those choices and decisions begin to line up. If we hold things in, avoid, and deny ourselves the pleasures that we seek, hobbies, passions, whatever, then we're almost shutting off parts of ourselves. And that's never authentic, right? We're multidimensional. We're not meant to be just in one little box and this is who I am, this is what I do. We're meant to experience as much of life as we can in the very short time while we're here. And we can only really live out that experience when we're honest and truthful and authentic, because only then will we make choices that line up with what we truly want. And things don't happen overnight. We have to be patient, but they can happen when we're acting in, I would say, the greatest faith to ourselves, which is what we truly seek and love in our hearts. Um, One of the things we come up against sometimes is, well, wait a minute. What if I speak my mind, speak my truth, especially when it comes to family, right? What if they can't hear me? What if they can't hear me? What if they don't hear me? What if they uh tell me I'm wrong, or deny your feelings? I've been through this quite a many times. And when you tell somebody I'm hurt, I feel unappreciated, that hurt my feelings, or this makes me feel this way, and your partner or your brother or your sister or whoever, your best friend, says, you shouldn't feel that way and here's why, you are dealing with someone who is not emotionally available to you. And the sooner you realize that, the better. If you tell someone that you're hurt, someone that cares about you, and they try to talk you out of it, don't try to talk them into it. I would say walk away, because you're bleeding your heart. Your heart is bleeding all over them and they are not wiping it up, so to speak, right? So there is a risk in being vulnerable. There is a risk in being truthful to the people in your life. But there is not a guarantee that they are going to be prepared to receive and acknowledge. And that's, I think, where the risk comes in. If you know that who you're talking to will, like, "Oh my gosh, Liz, okay, I hear you. You know what? I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings," which is really all it takes. And instead they argue with you, flip it on you. We have those gaslighters and those narcissistic type of people. You must just pack your bags and walk away, knowing that you did the best you could and that all people are not going to be able to meet you where you are. And in that lesson comes back to, as much as we want to be our true authentic selves, we also have to accept people the way they are, right? A lot of people come to therapy because they want their partner to change or their child to change. And, we can all grow, certainly. I've seen it. I've facilitated it in my office for many, many, almost 2 decades. But it's not everyone can do that. So the risk that we take when we're being vulnerable or we're being authentic is that the person on the other end might not be able to meet us there. They might not have the emotional availability. They might not have the confidence. They may gaslight us, tell we're crazy. That's not true. And in those scenarios, we then have the task of saying, okay, I acted in good faith. I told this person how I was feeling. I asked them for what I needed, and they ignored me or told me I was wrong or, whatever. And from that, I have to accept that that's them. Everyone can't be exactly the way you want them to be. And this is another big issue with authenticity in relationships, right? If we have to be authentic or we want authenticity and alignment for ourselves, we also have to accept that in other people, which means maybe you want someone to hear you, to understand you, to show you love in a certain way, but that doesn't mean that they're capable. And when someone is not capable, continuously trying is like banging your head on the wall. It's hurtful, doesn't get you anywhere, and you're just going to wind up with a big headache. So, in those circumstances, we want to have the ability to say, I have to fully accept that this person that I love is not capable of hearing me, is not capable of meeting me where I am, and um, will never honor my truth. They're only going to honor their truth. And that's the point where you just have to, okay, I'm not going to try a second, third, fourth, fifth time, which we tend to do, because again, you might as well go bang your head on the wall because you're going to get the same headache from that you're going to get from trying to talk to somebody who really doesn't have the ability, who doesn't care or have the ability to care. So when we're jumping into this idea of authenticity and true self, it's just a lot like a big parade. Hey, this is who I am. Yay, let's celebrate. It's way deeper than that. It's about self examining your relationship to yourself, looking at every decision you make, every choice you make, and deciding, is this is this truly what I want or not? And of course, it can't always be our way, right? We have to get uncomfortable for people sometimes, but every case is different, every situation is different. But generally speaking, you have the freedom to choose what it is that you want. Somebody that I recommend, anyone watching this podcast, if you're interested in this topic, there's a speaker, a very popular speaker named Bashar, and I'll leave it at that. Daryl Anka Bashar. Look it up on YouTube and look up his formula. And he calls it the 5-step formula for life. And without getting into too many details, basically what he says is live your passion as much as you can every minute of the day, every waking hour, and take it as far as you can until you can take it no further. And then pivot and go to the next thing you're passionate about. And his point being is that when we in life, when we choose to do the thing that excites us the most, it doesn't have to be like a big project, right? Just like what excites me right this minute as the most fun thing to do or the most true authentic thing to do for myself. Could be taking a nap, could be going for a run, could be reading a book, could be going out to dinner, could be drawing, painting, dancing, whatever. Being with my dogs, laying on the couch, doesn't matter what it is. But if you ask in every moment, what is my highest passion in this moment? It's sort of the same thing. What is the most authentic choice that I can make right now for me? When we can decide that, when we choose that every single time, he says that is the formula of success that your life must work out the way you want when you make those choices. Now, he's very much a, I would say, metaphysical speaker. I love him. I love his wisdom. Bashar, Daryl Anka, look it up on YouTube and see if you like him. And his flawless formula for living in your passion. And I think it simplifies what I'm saying. I'm the therapist, so I'm going like kind of deep into how do we understand what we need to say, how to be true to ourselves, what needs to change in order for me to be authentic to myself, what are the little things I can do to start, what are the big decisions that maybe I need to think about, what big conversations and with whom do I need to have these conversations to really get my needs met, get my interpersonal freedom moving, and enjoy life to its fullest by, asking questions, looking at relationships. And I'm really helping you go from here to here, right? Spiritual and coachy speakers, they tend to say, this is how you should live your life. You should be authentic. Yay. Okay, that's great. Sure, we should be. But they don't tell you how to get there. And my job as a therapist and as one that speaks publicly is I like to help people go from where we are sitting here today, let's say, and here's your ultimate landing spot. This is where you want to go. You're here, but you want to go here. That space in between the starting point and this ending point is therapy. So speakers and coaches tend to just say, this is what you should do. This is how you should think. This is how you should feel. You'll feel better if you agree with what I'm saying. But most of us are sitting here like, well, wait, how the hell do I get here when I'm here? That's what a good therapist will do. That's what I do with my clients. Everything in between where you are and where you want to be is therapy. And it does take showing up for yourself and asking those questions every day. What do I need today? What do I want to do today? Who do I want to be with today? Who do I not want to be with today? How am I really feeling? And sometimes when we're being authentic, we that also means we have to be authentic when we're not feeling the best, right? I've had to really learn that if I am not having a good day, I don't fake it anymore. I don't put it on other people, but I will stay to myself and let myself be miserable and it passes and then I move on, right? When we don't do that, that misery never goes anywhere and it builds and it builds and it builds. And then you have people moving into depression, addiction, anxiety, and it's a very human thing to do. So I say this with no judgment, but we are creatures of, we are social creatures and we are creatures that have been conditioned to go with the flow in a way, to please others and meet societal conditions. We were all raised this way. And yes, we've evolved and changed and we're moving into a new world, I believe, but as we move through and we evolve, we have to learn that there is a sweet spot, I'll call it, a sweet spot for when you are putting yourself, your needs, your authentic feelings and desires as the forefront and not allowing other people's expectations or society's expectations to force you down a path or to make decisions that you don't want. And this is probably one of the biggest challenges in life. And that's why I'm talking about it because I think it's so important. So I could go on and on, but it's Saturday. I love Saturdays. And I want everyone to start today. Think about, okay, how can I live out my most authentic self just today? Did I get invited anywhere? What do I really want to do? What would I like to try? Think about it. Write down in your journal or on paper what's going on with me. Where am I in alignment? Where am I not? How do I make my decisions based on what other people will think or based solely on what I want? And there's a middle spot. It doesn't have to be screw everybody. I'm going to do what I want. F you. I think there's a sweet spot, but you have to come first. I believe that. And then you work it out from there, right? So who do I need to have conversations with? Where am I feeling resentment? When I feel resentment in my relationships, is that really the other person or is that me because I haven't spoken up for what I need? Right? Who do I feel safe enough with in my life to have these conversations? Who do I not feel good with? Right? These are things that we have to kind of examine. And then each day we can challenge ourselves just a little bit. And that's all it takes. Every day we have many opportunities to people please and pacify or to, find the sweet spot or just, sometimes just say, not today. So, if you would like to work on becoming more authentic to yourself and in your relationships, become more confident, learn how to set boundaries, um, and many other things, you can reach out to me and work with me in therapy as a client. And I'm very easy to find, upliftmeliz.com. I do a lot of intensive work, which just means intensive therapy, meaning instead of once a week for a year or two, I like to get people to come in, a couple times a week for a few months. But I can do it the other way too, but I like intensives because they work. They really get you in there and they really facilitate change. So I have those kinds of programs and just regular therapy too. You can find out all about me on upliftmeliz.com. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and of course, right here on YouTube. Join me for my lives, which are usually Mondays at 3 this week. Had a little change of schedule. Here we are on Saturday, but I will be here Monday at 3. I don't know what we're talking about yet, but I'll figure it out. Or if you have any suggestions, send me messages. I love to hear from people and put in the comments like, what kind of things do you do that are cutting off your ability to be authentic? Who are you pleasing? Who are you putting before yourself? Think about it and let me know in the comments. And have an absolutely lovely, beautiful, exquisite Saturday afternoon in mid June. Happy summer, everybody. Thanks for your support. See you soon.